Desire is both the spark of life and the thief of peace. It is the fire that wakes us in the morning, the pulse that drives every song, every invention, every love story. And yet the very same fire can scorch us, leaving only ashes of disappointment and restlessness. We crave, we chase, we grasp, believing that if we could only hold on tightly enough, happiness would finally stay. But the harder we cling, the more fragile it becomes. Look at the ocean tide. The waves rush forward with all their might, curling into foamy white crescents, only to collapse and retreat. If the sea tried to keep every wave frozen in place, it would lose its rhythm, its breathing, its very life. Or watch a child clutching a butterfly in their hand. In the desperate act of holding, the wings are crushed, and the beauty disappears. Nature whispers a lesson here. What is meant to live cannot be forced into stillness, and what is meant to be held must also be free to move. And yet, desire will not leave us alone. It stirs when we see someone smile, when we taste success, when we dream of a different tomorrow. It is not wrong, it is human. But it has two faces. One face inspires us, filling the heart with wonder and the mind with creativity. The other face enslaves us, chaining us to endless wanting, to fear of loss, to the illusion that we can capture life like a photograph and stop it from changing. So here is the paradox. Desire is both the reason we wake up in the morning and the reason we lie awake at night. We cannot live without it, yet we cannot live peacefully with it, unless we learn how to see it differently. What happens when we stop treating desire as a master to obey or an enemy to kill? What happens when we allow it to flow like the river, to come and go like breath itself? Perhaps then, love no longer feels like attachment. Perhaps then, ambition no longer feels like slavery. This is the mystery Alan Watts invites us into, not to escape desire, but to see both its faces, the flame that warms and the chain that binds, and to learn how to hold the fire without getting burned. There was once a young man named Daniel who fell deeply in love. At first, it was effortless, the kind of connection that made the world feel brighter just by her presence. He found joy in the smallest things, walking with her under streetlights, sharing cheap coffee at midnight, laughing at jokes no one else would understand. Desire was alive in its most beautiful form, light, playful, full of promise. Daniel's story is not just about romance. It is about the way we live our entire lives. We mistake desire for possession. We think joy comes from fixing things in place, from making love eternal, success permanent, happiness unchanging. But life has never worked this way. Look at a river. Its beauty is in its flowing, not its freezing. The moment water becomes stagnant, it begins to rot. Or think of a forest. It thrives because leaves fall, seasons change, trees die, and new ones are born. If every leaf clung to its branch forever, there would be no spring, no renewal, no life. Nature is teaching us constantly. What gives life is not permanence, but movement, not clinging, but release. Alan Watts once said that the greater part of our frustration comes from trying to hold the water of life in our hands. The tighter we close our fists, the less we can keep. But if we let our hands remain open, life flows through them, cool, refreshing, ever renewing. Desire is the same. It is not a mistake. It is the current that moves us. But when we confuse it with ownership, it turns against us. So what is the principle here? Desire is meant to move us, not to chain us. Love is meant to be experienced, not imprisoned. Ambition is meant to inspire, not to strangle. Every time we try to freeze the river of life, we create suffering. But every time we let it flow, we rediscover freedom. Think of the breath you're taking right now. You cannot hold on to it forever, no matter how much you try. If you cling to the inhale, you suffocate. Only by letting it go can the next breath arrive. That is the secret life keeps whispering to us. Letting go is not the end. It is the very condition for renewal. When we see desire in this light, its two faces no longer confuse us. The flame is still there. It warms, it guides, it inspires. But we no longer mistake it for a chain. We no longer crush the butterfly in our hand. We let it land, rest for a while, and when it flies away, we remain grateful for its visit. There are always two ways we can walk with desire. Path one is the familiar one. We cling. We treat love like property, success like a trophy that must never tarnish, happiness like a fragile glass we guard night and day. On this path, life becomes a constant battle of maintenance. Every smile hides fear of losing it. Every achievement whispers that it might not be enough. Like a ruler in a dictatorship, we try to control every detail, every outcome, every moment. But the tighter the grip, the more cracks appear. The cost is heavy. Anxiety, jealousy, exhaustion, and the quiet loneliness of someone always afraid that tomorrow will take away what today gave. Path two is the less traveled one. Instead of clinging, we allow. Love becomes a dance rather than a contract. Success, a journey rather than a destination. Happiness, a song rather than a possession. On this path, we trust the rhythm of life the way a musician trusts the orchestra. Each note arises, shines, and fades into the next. No one tries to hold the sound forever. Its beauty is in its passing. When we walk this way, desire still burns, but it doesn't consume us. It becomes inspiration, not obsession, movement, not imprisonment. The difference is like a desert and a forest. A desert looks still, but its stillness is death. No growth, no renewal, only endless sand. A forest is alive precisely because it changes. Leaves fall, rain comes, sunlight shifts, animals move through. Desire treated as possession is the desert. Desire treated as flow is the forest. Alan Watts often put it simply. When you try to stay on top of the wave, you're already sinking, but when you ride with it, the ocean carries you. So the choice is not about rejecting desire or drowning in it. The choice is about how we hold it, as a chain or as a flame, as dictatorship or as dance. And if you need one sentence to remember it, let it be this. What you cling to slips away, but what you allow to flow will always return. But soon, another face of desire began to appear. He started to fear losing her. When she didn't reply to a message, his chest tightened. When she smiled at someone else, he felt jealousy gnawing at him. The more he cared, the more he tried to control. He asked where she was, who she was with, when she would be back. What began as love turned slowly into possession. One evening, Daniel noticed she seemed distant. She laughed less, her eyes wandered elsewhere. Desperate, he tried harder. more gifts, more attention, more questions. But the harder he clung, the more she slipped away. Finally, she told him the truth. I loved the freedom we shared, but now it feels like a cage. Daniel was heartbroken. He thought desire meant holding tighter, proving love by never letting go. Yet, in his effort to preserve what he loved, he smothered it. Like a gardener who waters a flower so obsessively that its roots rot, he forgot that love needs space as much as closeness, breath as much as embrace. We have all lived some version of Daniel's story, maybe not with romance, but with ambition, family, or even our own dreams. We chase an image of perfection, and when it begins to fade, we panic. We try to lock it in place, but in doing so, we miss the very life we wanted to preserve. Desire itself was never the problem. It was the clinging, the demand that it must stay exactly as we imagined, that brought the suffering. There is a strange freedom in admitting, I don't know. We spend so much of life trying to turn desire into certainty. If I have this person, if I keep this job, if I reach this goal, then I will finally be safe. But the truth is, we never really know. Love can surprise us. Success can dissolve overnight. Even our own hearts can change without warning. To the mind, this uncertainty feels like danger. But to the spirit, it can feel like liberation. Think of the eye. It sees everything in the world, but it cannot see itself directly. Or the knife. It can cut many things, but never its own blade. Or light. It illuminates everything else, but can never shine directly on itself. In the same way, desire cannot fully grasp its own fulfillment. The more we chase after certainty, the more it escapes us. This is not a flaw. It is the very mystery of being alive. When we loosen the demand to know, to control, to guarantee, we enter a space where wonder can breathe again. A relationship can surprise us instead of suffocate us. Ambition can lead us into new adventures instead of trapping us in fear of failure. The unknown is not the enemy of desire. It is its playground. Alan Watts often reminded us that the meaning of life is just to be alive. Not to have every answer, not to lock down every outcome, but to dance with the questions. When we stop fearing the unknown, it becomes a horizon instead of a threat. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest at night. You cannot see what lies beyond the trees. The mind panics. What if there is danger? What if I get lost? But another part of you whispers, what if there is beauty? What if there is discovery? That is the invitation of desire when we stop demanding certainty. It leads us into mystery, where life is richer than anything we could have scripted. So perhaps the deepest wisdom is not in knowing how to control desire, but in bowing to its mystery, letting it carry us into places we never expected, trusting that not knowing is not a weakness, but the beginning of wonder. We began with a paradox. Desire gives us life, and yet it steals our peace. After walking through stories and images, perhaps now the paradox feels less like a contradiction and more like a truth we can live with. Desire was never the villain. It is the flame that lights our mornings, the current that moves us forward. The pain came only when we tried to turn that flame into a chain, when we mistook motion for permanence, when we demanded that life obey our grasp. But look again. Change, loss, even uncertainty, they are not enemies. They are companions on the road. Just as autumn makes room for spring, just as every breath ends so the next can begin, letting go is the very reason life can keep giving. What once felt like death to our control can feel like birth to our freedom. Think of Daniel's story again. His heartbreak came not because he loved, but because he clung. If he had allowed love to breathe, to shift, to surprise, he might have discovered that true intimacy is not in possession, but in presence. And so it is with all desire. What we allow to flow enriches us. What we trap eventually breaks us. Alan Watts reminded us that freedom does not come from conquering life, but from dancing with it. And so the invitation is simple, though not always easy. Trust the mystery. Let desire be a flame, not a chain. Let it warm your heart, guide your steps, inspire your art, but never mistake it for something you must imprison. Because what is truly yours will never need to be forced. What belongs in your life will stay, not because you grip it, but because it is meant to. So let the river flow. Let the butterfly land and lift again. Let the wave rise and fall. And let yourself discover that love and desire, in their truest form, are not prisons but openings, doorways into the vast, surprising, ever-unfolding beauty of being alive.